With every catastrophic or devastating world event, and for every seemingly senseless act of violence, there's a certain phenomenon that occurs, especially in the wake of the World Wide Web. A lot of people like to call them conspiracy theories, but I like to call it fear-mongering paranoia, and you've heard them all. I mean, in fact, it's a full-blown industry now. Everything from Obama being planted as a Muslim infiltrator to the fact that the government is spraying all of us from the air with deadly chemicals on a daily basis around the world. And there's no shortage that have arisen out of the latest Sandy Hook tragedy. Sorry. Some claim that the parents of the children on television are paid actors, that Adam Lanza and James Holmes were both mind-controlled government pawns used just to pass gun control legislation. And even going as far as saying that the Batman movie is somehow complicit in the mass shootings. Not a joke. So to talk about the nature of why these theories develop and the potential damage they do to healthy skepticism about government narratives, I'm joined by RT producer Rachel Curzius.
How's it going,
Hi,
Abby?
thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
So I like to call this fear-mongering paranoia. You know, it's really interesting because all of these theories just arise immediately in the wake of anything without really any evidence coming out to back them up. What do you think about that assessment of the fear-mongering paranoia?
Well, I think that the paranoia part is dead on, but in terms of fear-mongering, to me, I think it's much scarier to envision that one person on their own could just snap and do something and that a government safety net or other kinds of support systems couldn't help them. To me, the idea that someone could be acting alone and totally irrationally is much scarier than the idea of like one government plot. And it's more complicated to imagine that someone, you know, your guest earlier said that the reasons for violence are so complicated, and they are. And I think that that makes it so much scarier because it means we have to think a lot harder before we come to any kind of solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I call it fear-mongering because people who have capitalized on the industry of it, people like Alex Jones, who, I mean, immediately you see them making videos and really selling. I mean, they're making money, and it's the fear-mongering to keep people scared of the government, and perpetual state of fear that the government is this overarching villain who's responsible for everything. But it's really like what you just said. It's the oversimplification of something that's much more complex and that people can't really grasp, that one person acting alone would do something so horrific.
Yeah, and I think that it's healthy if it's difficult for us to grasp what would bring someone to do that, but it's also healthy to imagine that what they're doing could be interconnected with a lot of our actions, even if we can't relate to them on a personal basis.
It reminds me of someone, you know, a creationist or someone who, and I'm not bucking you if you're a creationist at all, but I mean, it's almost like denying just a whole mountain of evidence. Just saying it's too hard for me to understand how evolution works or how science works, so I'm just going to kind of defer everything to God's making.
I'd rather not clean my room, even if the clothes keep piling up and up and up, and it just gets harder and harder. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
And let's talk about some of these theories because they're so bizarre. I mean,
they are absolutely insane.
And I've been getting hollered at a lot from people who watch the show saying, how come you're not covering these? You're selling out, the LIBOR scandal thing. I really wanted to talk about this really quickly because people have claimed that the two fathers of Adam Lanza and the other guy, I don't even want to say that house who shall not be named, their fathers were going to testify for LIBOR. It's actually a complete hoax. It's not true.
Oh, it's not true. I mean, I didn't even know whether or not that was true. And, you know, even if it were true, someone was saying, you know, it's kind of viable to me because if that were the case, their fathers probably work really hard and they didn't have a man around in the house, so this is what led to it. And I was just like, really?
Yeah.
You know, it's that, I mean, people are going now into Adam Lanza's corpse, and there are geneticists working with the FBI to figure out what is this gene that made him tick? What is it that made him do this? Is it, you know, absent fathers? Is it mothers? Is it video games? And, you know, it isn't any one of those things. And I think that that's something that's difficult. The fact that we can't just put it in a box and say, okay, no more video games. Now everyone's set, and we're all going to be safe from here on
More
out.
guns, less guns. It's
Right,
it's a lot more complex.
Right, it's like we have to move away from third grade arithmetic and start getting into like the more complex stuff we learned a little later in high
Well,
school.
that's hard for the media to grasp, really.
Oh,
And let's talk
always.
the multiple shooters thing is also really fascinating to me because people are reliant. First of all, there's multiple shooters reported in the wake of any hysteria. I mean, we're talking about a really traumatic event, and they're relying on testimony from 5-year-old children
Right.
telling the media, yes, I saw this person run into the woods, I saw this person. I mean, that's really hard to rely upon and say, it was staged, it's a psyop, it's a black
Right, I mean,
it's a
just
government
because
black
there's
op.
a lot of confusion in the middle of a horrific tragedy doesn't mean that there's some sort of nefariousness behind the information spilling out. I think that Sandy Hook was a great example of the media doing the best that it could, but it wasn't good enough. It's never good enough because how are you supposed to know everything right away? That's why these investigations take months and months and months.
Right, absolutely. And I wanted to talk about the main damage that this does, I think, which is really deflect people from movements and healthy criticism. I mean, I question everything that the government tells me. I question government narratives. I think that it's really important. And I also believe in some conspiracy theories. I think that the media and establishment has taken this term, made it a really pejorative term, and they use it to shut down the dialogue. Do you think that the term conspiracy theory is overused to kind of shut down any healthy skepticism?
Yeah, well, I think that a lot of people would use, just as you said, pejoratively to say, oh, well, Abby, why are you talking about that on your show? It's a conspiracy theory, as opposed to maybe thinking about it and saying, okay, listen, maybe the idea of a conspiracy theory is something like people are acting in these shadowy, dark rooms to keep you down. And what makes me upset about that is it totally takes away my agency, right? Because if people are talking in some back room, I have no control over what's happening. But if I believe that this is, the government is an institution, but all institutions are made up of little people.
Right. It totally takes away our responsibility, takes away our autonomy to act.
And the ability of people in government who can act better and who might, if we contact them and recognize what's at stake.
And we need to do that. We really need to differentiate between reality and
Wacko.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming on, shedding some light on it.
Glad to be here.
Rachel
Thanks for having
Curzius,
me.
RT producer.
Okay, I hope you realize they're in full damage control mode. And what you just saw right there was a well thought out and prepared plan of propaganda to deflect from our actual contentions and numerous inconsistencies that have led not just a few people. There's a lot of people now that are absolutely convinced, and Hatrick Penry's here to tell you right now, yes, I do honestly believe Sandy Hook was a complete hoax. I don't think anybody died there. But I think if you look at RT in particular, now, interesting they're jumping on the Jones bandwagon. Everyone's turning on Jones, but look what happens, those that turn on Jones, Mark Dice, Pete Santilli, RT, hey, they're all pieces of crap, man. You can't trust those guys. So for RT to try to gain any credibility by harping on Jones, it doesn't work for me. I harped on RT since March of 2011 when they wouldn't report on Plumegate, the United States' largest provable conspiracy. Multiple agency, thousands and thousands, over 50,000 American deaths. RT never mentioned it. RT has never mentioned it. Now look at them in full all-out damage control in the Sandy Hook. And I tell you, if it's not a hoax, why are they in damage control mode to such a degree? If it's not a hoax, why so many sock puppet accounts trying to influence the threads on YouTube? If it's not a hoax, why does the guy Vance guy care? He's not arresting you for talking about the Loch Ness Monster. They want to arrest you for talking about Bigfoot. They want to arrest you for talking about Chupacabra, right? But they want to call you wingnut conspiracy theorists. I hope you guys truly understand that RT has lost all credibility. Under the thread under this video, incidentally, someone said they lost like 2,000 subscribers in a day on RT since this went up. So this is all-out damage control mode because I promise you right now, I promise you that my belief, okay, is that Sandy Hook at the very least was a hoax, and I strongly suspect that the Loeffner incident was indeed staged, and the Holmes, the Aurora incident was also indeed staged. And there's a number of these that have been going on for a long time. This isn't the first. We're just waking up to it, and they're getting sloppy, and we've got a lot of evidence on them. Now, I captured this video, and I wanted you to watch it because I want you to understand that RT used to have Alex Jones on all the time. Kokesh on Alex Jones, Kokesh, RT, RT, Kokesh to Jones. Jones to the Intel Hub, Jones to Natural News. I've showed you this giant shill nest Operation Mockingbird style alternative media infiltration. I've been reporting on it since March of 2011. This is the infiltration. RT's part of it.